Jim Jones just doesn't know when to quit talking. But this time, his mouth wrote a check his reputation couldn't cash. From flipping Dipset stories to rewriting old beefs like we forgot the footage exists, fans have had enough.
The rock star look. Who came up with that? You or Joel's?
The rock and roll look, that's my look. That's my look. Joel's is my little brother. I started the whole aesthetic. Wasn't nobody dressing like rock stars at all. Nowhere near the game. It wasn't thinking about it. I created that whole style and implemented it into the hip hop culture. You dig? But yeah, I set the torch up for the rock star rap look. I've always been dressing like a white boy since high school. I've been wearing motorcycle jackets and shit like that since high school. I got a different style than most.
And I know Wayne, he started dressing like that.
Yeah, we gave it to Wayne. He came to Dipset school, was with us for a whole summer. He was with Wells for a whole summer. Naturally, his whole...
The internet's tired of the fairy tales. The receipts are dropping nonstop. And now, Jim's credibility? It's hanging on for dear life. Man, at this point, every time Jim Jones opens his mouth, he's just digging himself deeper. The Harlem rapper who once stood as one of New York's most respected figures is now getting exposed for spinning stories, flipping facts, and straight-up rewriting Dipset history. Fans have officially had enough. What's crazy is, Jim's been doing interview after interview trying to clean up his image, but every time he talks, he just makes it worse. It all kicked off when Jim started making his podcast rounds again, claiming he built Dipset from the ground up. According to him, there'd be no movement, no fashion wave, no Harlem takeover without his vision. But the internet wasn't having it. Fans immediately pulled up old interviews and clips, like Cameron explaining how he put Jim on, gave him exposure, and even funded the early Dipset days. So when Jim said, "I created Dipset," fans clapped back like, "Nah, bro, you joined Dipset." Even his interviews keep proving him wrong. At one point, he said, "I definitely get my respect as a New York rapper. My name is Capo. Don't let the internet fool you." But that tough talk didn't fool anybody, because people can see through the cap now. Jim's been telling different versions of the same story for years, about who built the group, who fell out, and who kept it alive, and every time, the details just don't match up. Mays recently went on It Is What It Is and called him out directly, saying, "Jim been lying on my name for years, but now people see it for themselves." And fans went crazy after that, because it's true, Jim's been twisting the narrative to paint himself as a boss. Even his old beefs don't make sense anymore. One day he's dissing the Locks after the Versus, the next is saying it wasn't serious. One week is cool with Mays, the next is throwing shade again. The streets are tired of the act. Hip-hop fans once respected Jim for his grind. He wasn't the sharpest lyricist, but he was real and he worked hard. Now, that consistency has turned into desperation. Every few months he pops up defending himself from something new. And instead of looking solid, he looks insecure. Because at this point, Jim's biggest problem isn't Cam, Mays, or Jadakiss. It's his own mouth that keeps ruining him. Let's be real. Jim Jones's biggest downfall has always been his ego. Instead of letting his legacy speak for itself, he's been obsessed with controlling the story.
Going on right now asking if it's Nas or Jim Jones.
What's the question?
Nas or Jim Jones?
I'm a Harlem nigga. I will never ever disrespect Nas, first and foremost. Jimmy, that's the bro. That's Uncle Jomo, but first and foremost, he need to sit his ass fuck.
Nas or Jim Jones?
Nas.
Nas or Jim Jones? Nas.
Nas or Jim Jones?
Nas.
Nas or Jim Jones? Is that a serious question?
Nas, bro. Jim Jones is a clown.
Nas or Jim Jones?
Come on.
Is that a question?
Yo.
Is that a
Hey, yo.
Nas or Jim Jones?
Come on.
No.
Yo.
Nas
Nas.
for the post.
Nas or Jim Jones?
You said Nas or Jim Jones? Oh, Nas.
Nas or Jim Jones?
Nas. I ain't gonna lie. Let's go. Jim Jones, though. All right.
And now that obsession's coming back to bite him. In one interview, he's bragging about how he held Dipset together. In the next, he's blaming everyone else for the fallout. And when fans start calling out those contradictions online, Jim doesn't reflect. He deflects, saying people are twisting his words, when really, the man just can't keep his story straight. Things really started unraveling when Maze and Cameron launched It Is What It Is. They'd casually bring up old Dipset moments, and suddenly fans started putting the puzzle together, realizing Jim wasn't the general he pretended to be. Then Maze dropped that bombshell line. Jim talked like he was a general, but we all know who built the empire, and it wasn't him. That one quote broke the internet. Within hours, Twitter and TikTok were flooded with clips of Jim calling himself the capo, acting like he ran the coup, while receipts showed otherwise. And if that wasn't embarrassing enough, Jim doubled down in another interview. He tried to rewrite history again, saying his beef with Jadakiss and Styles P was just friendly competition. But everybody remembers how salty he was after that Versus battle, doing interviews, insisting Dipset didn't lose, even though the world saw them get smoked live. Jadakiss clapped back later, mocking him on radio like, "Don't rewrite history, bro. You know what happened." Fans laughed because he was right. The loss still stings, and Jim just won't admit it. Then came his awkward response about where he ranked among New York rappers. Instead of humility, he dodged the question. "I don't care about top 10 lists. I care about money." He went on this long rant about being the hype man who made it, trying to sound confident, but it came off defensive, like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. The same pattern keeps showing up. A man fighting ghosts instead of facing facts. And let's not forget the Maze situation. Now Jim's out here pretending their beef was just miscommunication, like he didn't spend years calling Maze a fake pastor and clowning him about money. The internet doesn't forget. People see right through the PR act. Even his own fans are tapping out, flooding the comments with lines like, "Jim been lying so long he forgot the truth." And when the same streets that built your name stop believing you, that's game over. It's not even about hate. It's about accountability. After 2 decades in this business, Jim still hasn't learned that you can't out-talk the truth. Every time he tries to rewrite the past, he ends up looking like the problem. The man who once embodied Harlem's authenticity now looks like he's stuck in a fantasy. Because if you have to keep defending your legacy, maybe it's not as solid as you think. They can't compete. Not on this level. Period. That's how Jim Jones talks. Loud, confident, and ready for smoke with anyone. "I spanked they boots," he said, daring rappers from his era to step up. "I got the money to back it. Tonight." But here's the truth. That bravado doesn't hit like it used to. Because somewhere along the way, the same hunger that made Jim Jones a Harlem icon turned into an obsession with proving something no one asked him to prove. Jim could have gone down as a certified Harlem legend. No debate. He had the hustle, the consistency, the longevity. But that craving for validation started chipping away at his authenticity. Instead of embracing his lane, he wanted to be seen as a mastermind behind Dipset. The problem? The real architects, Cameron, Maze, and even guys like Fat Joe, keep reminding the world who really built the movement. And when Maze and Cam joke about it on It Is What It Is, fans eat it up because they know they're not lying. Those moments on the show are brutal and hilarious at the same time. Maze once joked, "Jim's like that dude who copies your homework but still gets it wrong," and the internet lost its mind. Because that's exactly how it feels. Every time Jim tries to rewrite Dipset history, it just sounds forced. And now he's trying to crown himself as the face of Harlem's new wave, saying he inspired a young generation. But let's be real, Abe Boogie, Fivio Foreign, and Dave East aren't quoting Jim Jones. They respect him, sure, but is not influencing their sound. Instead of aging gracefully into his legend status, Jim's been chasing trends. Viral interviews, clickbait beefs, fake controversies, anything to stay in the headlines for another week. He keeps saying, "I want smoke in the booth," challenging anyone from his era, talking about legendary status don't matter. But that energy doesn't feel like confidence anymore. It feels like desperation. Like a man trying to convince the world he's still that guy. Even his shots at Pusha T last year proved that point. Jim called him overrated, saying he had no hits in New York, and instantly got roasted. Fans flipped it back, reminding him that Pusha ended Drake's run for months, something Jim could never pull off. What started as competition turned into another meme moment. And that's become Jim's problem. He's so busy trying to defend his legacy, he's forgotten how to add to it. Jim's brand used to mean loyalty, Harlem pride, and resilience. Now, it's excuses, contradictions, and denial. Every time he claps back, he just confirms what everyone already suspects, that he can't take accountability. And that's why fans are tuning out. Because in a game where authenticity still matters, Jim Jones doesn't sound like Harlem's realist anymore. He sounds like a man arguing with his own legacy. Jim Jones has officially lost touch with his own roots, trying to protect an image that isn't even real anymore. He talks about New York pride, name-dropping legends like Jadakiss, Fab, and Fat Joe, rappers who still command respect because their work speaks louder than their mouths. But Jim is all talk these days. The same guy who once embodied Harlem's hunger now sounds like he's trying to convince the world he still belongs at the table. And the sad part is, no one's buying it. At this point, the writing's on the wall. Jim's losing the one thing that made him who he was, the people's respect. He still moves like the capo of Harlem, but when your stories don't line up and your peers keep exposing your lies, that title don't mean a thing. Even his recent attempt to play peacemaker between Dipset members fell flat because nobody believes his version of events. He talks just to stay relevant, but no one's taking him seriously anymore. Online, fans are literally keeping score, reposting clips with captions like, "Didn't he say something different last month?" or "This man lying again." Has become his own meme. And it's crazy, because it didn't have to end this way. Jim had the chance to evolve into a respected OG, a Harlem elder statesman who mentors the youth, gives game, and solidifies his legacy. But instead, he doubled down on ego and delusion, still screaming, "I want smoke," like it's 2006. He keeps talking about rankings and booed battles, but the fans aren't impressed by empty bars. They want truth. And truth is something Jim hasn't been able to deliver for years. Even Cameron couldn't resist throwing shade. During an episode of It Is What It Is, Cam joked, "Some people been lying so long, they think it's a truth." And Mays instantly laughed and said, "That's capo behavior." Boom, internet explosion. That one clip spread like wildfire because everybody knew who they were talking about. Jim got exposed on the same platform that built his legacy. The irony couldn't be louder. Now, Jim's out here shouting about smoke in the booth and money over rankings, trying to sound fearless. But at this point, it's not even about competition. It's about credibility. The same Harlem that once lifted him up is now side-eyeing him, waiting for him to finally keep it real. Because in hip-hop, you can rebuild your career after a flop. You can bounce back from a bad album. But once you lose authenticity, once the streets stop believing you, that's game over. And for Jim Jones, that game ended the moment pride became his biggest enemy.